Okay, just for the third video, once again the recap is the first video is about the cognition of identity, the association, and how you have to have a grammar to speak about this initial cognition, these initial rules, and even when you've established what it is to follow this rule or to make these identities, since there's variance here of interpretation, because somebody else may be following the rule, but you're not certain, you have to keep stacking and triangulating, so to speak, forming a geometry of grammars in order to become more confident that the other individual is on the same page as you. So this becomes a matter of confidence because there's really no testability. The testability is found with the idea that the other individual is going to follow the rule and speak similarly or to your content. In the second case, the point of the second case, the second video, is to point at the cyclic nature of rational versus mythic paradigms in which we live in, and how we emerge from one to another and back to the other, and how Agnosticism likes to take the irrationality of dream states, prelingual ideals, and apply them to rationality, or find things in the rational world which seemingly irrational, and point to those, because this causes a discord with the rational paradigm. Now, this third video on agnosticism has to do with the externality of the accepted paradigm. It has to do with stating that they don't know what something was, some particular event. So let's say that you were in company and you saw a UFO or an orb, or you saw a spirit, a ghost, if you will, some personification show up, and then it went away. So all of a sudden you had this experience that seemed to violate your very ground of reason and ration. And I will say that most people probably won't claim to ever have this, but if you did and you were in company and that thing left, you would not have the scientific, you wouldn't have any empirical way to test this, because you can't control its break within your paradigm. So Steph Bot's wrong to claim that we could be able to test it. A lot of these claimed events are happening singularly or without control. If you're in company, then it's easier to make a defense or a claim against the event being a product of a psychological aberration, a psychologicalism that is not considered sane within the normative structures of psychology. So you'd have a community in which to justify it, but to skeptics on the outside of this would still appear to be their next appeal would be that whatever it was not outside of physics. It was simply an event that happened that you can't seemingly be able, that you're not capable or sophisticated enough to explain within physics, but that it happened within the laws of physics as we know them. For if it is to appear in our rational paradigm as reason sits within the world, and we're figuring it out, so to speak, these events that would happen are appealed to as either flukes of physics or within physics. They're flukes of psychology, or they're figments of psychology, psychological problems. Anyway, so the agnosticism that treats the grand universe as something unknown seems to revolve around individuals who either accept other people's testimonies about supernatural events, or they have had them themselves, and these particular breaks in their religious modality have caused them good reason, have caused them to shake a little bit and say, well, hey, look, if that was to happen, since I saw this, since this occurred to me, I can no longer actually trust that this wall is impenetrable, or that there is not some matter or submatter that's going through here. And then they apply whatever the best words are, which are in the language, to apply to these things, and say, well, that was a spirit, or this was an orb, or this was a ghost, or a UFO, or whatnot. So they're still using, probably through the dream states, the irrational states, things to assign. And then they cannot any longer trust that the limits of the physics are all that they should be able to appeal to. And so they let loose of the rationality, they suspend it at different times. So there's a suspension of rationality where objectivists proper would never suspend the rationality, because oftentimes, and they do this wrongly, they assume that the language, the sign to the signified, is somehow that the sign is the signified, not that the sign is to a signified that is describing the world. Once again, time out 10 minutes. I guess just the follow-up here is this. Objectivists are rhetorical, meaning they're going around, somebody that lives in an objective, rational world. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah. Objectivists are rhetorical. I love that, because all they're doing is pointing to the objects and saying, look, object, look, object, look, object. Please notice qualifying words. He always throws these in instead of like an ordinary event. It's a really ordinary event, or it's a super ordinary event, or it's something else. Let's see. See, the rational world, the objective world, and the subjective world are tethered together. One must make metaphor. The objectivist must make a metaphor, and that metaphor must be found in the subjective realm, and yet the subjectivist must always be referencing some one things, at least, that grounds them back to the objective world. So my job, if anyone is curious about what my intent is, it is to formulate trade routes and break the corks where this group wants to cork this group up, and this group wants to cork this group up, and this one's going to say, hey, all this is nonsensical, but matter of factly, even nonsensical language is able to have weight, maybe not reasonable weight, maybe not sensical weight, maybe not utility, have any utility, but it is weight nonetheless. I mean, what's the utility of bullshit? But you put it on a scale, it has weight. So the whole point here is that imagination and the metaphors of symbolism and mythology and the histories and the tracks that lay in the continued expression of humanity will influence individuals to think either of the world inside their head, or note their head within